Hey there, my name is Megan and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a spooky book recommendations video. So it is the fall season and fall is my favorite time of the year as it is for most people. I love when the weather cools down. I love Halloween. I love the spookiness. I love that the nights are getting shorter and darker. So I thought it would be a lot of fun to share with you 8 of my favorite spooky books today. I have 2 middle grade, 2 young adult, 2 adults, and 2 classics. So if you guys are interested in skipping to any particular portion, I will put the timestamps down below. But before we get on into the recommendations, if you are not already subscribed to my channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button as well as the little bell icon so you can be notified every time I post new content. I post new videos every Sunday and every Wednesday, and sometimes I post bonus videos on Friday. I'm going to go ahead and start with my middle grade books, and the first recommendation I have for you is The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. So I've read a handful of Neil Gaiman's books, and they are just so imaginative and so fantastical. But in this book, we follow a boy named Nobody Owens. When Nobody was an infant, his parents and family were murdered by a man named Jack, and he was the only one to survive. Before his parents ascended into the afterlife, they left him in a graveyard and entrusted his upbringing to a family of ghosts. So Nobody Owens grows up in a graveyard with these spectrals and all of these otherworldly spirits and experiences. But the man who murdered his family is still out to get Jack, so he has to do everything he can to thwart being murdered himself. So despite this being a middle grade book, it is a very dark premise, but I just love the whole setting of the graveyard with the mausoleums and the ghosts, and just the fact that at points nobody can actually leave this earth and go into kind of like an underworld type of thing. And it's just very atmospheric, it's very creepy, and it's just perfect for the October Halloween season because this whole thing deals with ghosts living in a graveyard and someone trying not to get murdered. So I definitely recommend The Graveyard Book for a creepy, fun middle grade read. The next book I'm going to be recommending is City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab. In this book, we follow a girl named Cassidy, and I think she's 12 or 13 years old. One day, Cassidy has a near-death experience that obviously she survives, and ever since then, she is able to see and interact with ghosts. And ironically, her parents are actually paranormal ghost hunters, and they have a TV show where they travel around the world and kind of investigate all of these supposed haunted places. So in this book, we are taken to Scotland, and her parents are investigating some ghost activity there, and our main character, Cassidy, kind of gets caught up in it. And I really liked this book because it was just super fun, and there are actually some real life ghost story haunted places that are incorporated into this book that are in Scotland, and I'd never heard about them before, and I actually looked up these places, and there's this underground kind of catacombs place that actually exists, and it was just so interesting, and I absolutely loved that Victoria Schwab was able to incorporate real life things into this story. And I think she actually lives in Scotland or lived in Scotland at one point, so it was definitely very authentic and very real, and I think this is just a very fun ghost story, and there's definitely a very creepy undertone to it. And I'm very excited to get to Tunnel of Bones. That's the second book in this series because I haven't read it yet, but I definitely recommend City of Ghosts if you're looking for another fun middle grade ghost story. The next book I'm going to be talking about is House of Salt and Sorrows by Erin A. Craig. This book I picked up last year because I saw it recommended on BookTube, and I had no idea that it was going to be so darn creepy. This book has some semi-horror scenes in it, y'all, that if you are reading it alone at night, it's definitely very scary. But this book follows a girl named Annalie, and Annalie has 12 sisters, and they have slowly been dying one by one, starting with the oldest, I believe. So Annalie is in line, you know, the next sister that is supposed to die. So the book starts off at her sister's funeral, which is just a very creepy setting to begin with. Additionally, the house or manor in which they live is located kind of in this really small remote town on the ocean, and it's just so atmospheric. It's kind of like an isolated setting. And additionally, we have the mystery of the murders, and Annalie's trying to figure out who's murdering her sisters. And we also have a lot of paranormal activity in this book because her sisters do come back and kind of haunt Annalie and help her figure out what is going on and who's been killing them. But this is also a retelling of the Grimm fairy tale, The 12 Dancing Princesses, which I had never heard of till I picked up this book. But in that fairy tale, these princesses are sneaking out every single night to go to this ball and then coming back, and no one can figure out where they're going or what they're doing. So not only do you have a ghost story in a remote setting on the ocean where people are getting murdered, you have a fairy tale retelling. So all of these things combined definitely make this a very creepy read and perfect for the October Halloween season. So I highly recommend it. I ended up giving this book 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I'm going to be recommending is Anna Dressed in Blood by Kendare Blake, and this is part of the Anna duology, the first one being Anna Dressed in Blood, and the second book being Girl of Nightmares. In this book, we follow a ghost hunter named Kaz, and Kaz kills ghosts that are having trouble passing on, and not friendly ghosts, but ghosts that harm other people. So one day, Kaz and his mother, who is a witch, move into this town, and he learns about a ghost that is haunting this house and causing havoc in this town, and he goes to investigate and meets Anna and learns that she is haunting and doing these bad things because of a certain reason, and he delves into the backstory of why she got killed, how she got killed, and the whole mystery surrounding that. I was not expecting to love this book as much as I did. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It was just a fun ghost story. There is a creepy haunted house. There are some scenes that are a bit gory and dark, and I absolutely loved it. And I will say that the only reason that I picked up the sequel is because I loved Anna Dressed in Blood so much. But Girl in Nightmares, I feel like, wasn't as good as Anna Dressed in Blood, but we're still following Kaz as he's kind of following Anna into the afterlife. I will say that Anna Dressed in Blood can be read as a standalone. I don't think you need to read Girl in Nightmares. I personally didn't like it as much, but I will say that this book is still creepy. There is a scene where they are walking through this forest, and it just gave me the willies. Like, it was just, it was so creepy. So if you are looking for just a fun ghost duology with a haunted house aspect, has to do with traveling into the underworld and hauntings, then Anna Dressed in Blood duology is definitely one you want to pick up. Now on to my adult books. The first one I'm going to recommend is The Night Parade by Ronald Malfi. I would say that this book is kind of like a semi-horror, and it does have to do with sickness and a pandemic. So due to our present circumstances, if that's something that makes you uncomfortable reading about, then I would probably pass on this one. But in this book, we follow a man named David, and he is living in a world that has succumbed to this awful pandemic, and it's killing a lot of people. One day, his wife goes into the hospital not feeling well and ends up dying the next day, and David thinks that there is this whole conspiracy surrounding her death, and he ends up taking his daughter and fleeing across the country because the doctors who helped his wife are now interested in his daughter, and they think that she might have something to do with the cure. But the kicker with this sickness is that it causes people to hallucinate and kind of succumb to madness. So we have a very unreliable narrator in this book because we don't know if the things that David are telling us are actually what's going on. Additionally, because the world is in such a bad place, there's really a lot of chaos and lawlessness, and as David and his daughter are traveling, they come across people who are just evil, and there's really no way or any accountability, any police force to stop them. And there's just some scenes where they deal with these people that just, oh my gosh, it was so creepy and so awful. And there are also some scenes with David where we read about him seeing things, and as the reader, we're trying to figure out if he's actually seeing the things or if he's hallucinating and if he's ill himself. So this book is really great because you don't know if you can trust the narrator, and you also don't know if what he's seeing and thinking are actually real. And then on top of that, you have a global pandemic, and it's just a really good book, and I do recommend it if you are interested in semi-horror genre and stories. The next book I'm going to be recommending is The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware. This is an adult thriller, and it is loosely based off of The Turn of the Screw by Henry James, which is a very traditional gothic ghost story. But in this book, we follow a woman named Rowan, and Rowan is a nanny, and she ends up answering an advert for a family who's looking for a nanny, and they live kind of in this remote part of Scotland in the countryside, and Rowan accepts, and when she gets to the house, she learns that it is a smart home. It is controlled by apps on your phone, and it can be remotely controlled. And as soon as she gets there, the father and mother kind of bolt because they have a business meeting to go to. So Rowan is left in this house with the groundskeeper and I think 3 young daughters. The thing that is creepy about this book is that strange things start happening in the house. The technology malfunctions. You don't know if it's something paranormal or if someone's messing with her. The three children end up being not very good children, and we actually learn that the estate in which Rowan moved to, the house, has a very dark history. There's a poison garden located on the premises, and the previous owner's daughter died ingesting some of the poisonous plants. And then Rowan starts hearing things in the kind of attic space upstairs above her bedroom, and she doesn't know if it's a haunting or if someone's messing with her because she's a new nanny. And I love this book because it was so unpredictable. I didn't know if we could trust our narrator. I didn't know if she was making these things up in her head or if she was actually hearing things. I didn't know if someone was messing with her or if it was a haunting. And books that have evil children in them really, really always creep me out, because one of the girls in this book, one of the daughters, is definitely not a good child. This is a great book to read because it's very atmospheric, it's got a lot of twists and turns, and it will definitely keep you on the edge of your seat. The next book I'm going to be recommending is Something Wicked This Way Comes by Ray Bradbury, and Ray Bradbury is one of my favorite authors, and I'll be honest, I think this was the first book I ever read of his, and I feel like that his writing is definitely not as polished as it is in subsequent works, so just keep that in mind going in. But this book surrounds a creepy, sinister carnival, and I'm here for that. If there's anything that has to do with evil carnivals, I'm going to read it, because I grew up going to the carnival every single fall that was down the street from my grandparents' house, so it has kind of like nostalgia fall feelings for me. So I love anything that has to do with carnivals. But in this book, we follow two teenage boys, Will and Jim, and they get involved with this traveling carnival that comes to their sleepy Midwestern town. And we get introduced to a character named Mr. Dark, who ends up targeting these boys and trying to get them to come to his carnival. And at this carnival, we learn that there is all of these evil contraptions. We have a merry-go-round that can make time go forward or backward. We have a witch that he sends off to hunt these boys. And it's definitely just a good versus evil book. And it's just got so many creepy elements. But despite it being creepy and revolving around this kind of sinister carnival, there is a lot of themes of like father and son relationship in here. So this is definitely a book that, while it's very scary and atmospheric and very weird, there is also those like heartwarming themes of family. This is another book that I would recommend to read around the October season, especially if you're looking to read a classic. And the next book I'm going to recommend is Dracula by Bram Stoker. I have not read Dracula in many, many years, but I remember reading it and really liking it. It is definitely dark and gothic, and it is one of the original vampire stories. So if you're comparing it to vampire stories today, this book might seem rather tame, but if you look at it, you know, in the context in which it was written, it was definitely creepy for its time. But I absolutely love the scene when Harker is visiting Dracula's castle and just the descriptions, and when he finds the coffin that Dracula sleeps in. And I just love the creepiness surrounding Lucy and Dracula hunting her and her death. And, you know, the people are trying to reconcile what they know about science and what they think is happening with regards to superstition. So I think it's a very good traditional vampire slash gothic story that I think everybody should read if you are into that genre and like vampires. Okay, you guys, so that is it for my spooky book recommendations. Let me know in the comments if you have read any of these books and what you thought of them. And also let me know if you have any creepy, spooky book recommendations for me, because I love creepy books. I'm not a big, like, gore, horror, murder fan, but I love just atmospheric, creepy books. So let me know if you have any recommendations, and I will see you guys soon in another video. Goodbye.